Hello Linux fans, Rob here, and welcome to Linux Quest. Thank you for watching. So yesterday, the Deepin OS team released Deepin OS version 15.3. Now, the Deepin team, it comes out of China, and they have based the Deepin OS off of Debian. A few versions earlier than this, I believe it was based off of Ubuntu, and they changed that, I believe, in the last version, or version 15.2. But you can check that out on their website as far as the history goes. Now, for most people, when they have a first look at the Deepin OS, they have a wow response, and rightfully so. Deepin has polish and features that are unique to the Linux environment, to the Linux desktop environment, and to the Linux older Linux distributions out there. It's really added a level of polish and feature and use that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say is really unmatched as far as some of what they're doing with overall look and feel and function. But it's not without fault, and I'll get into some of that as well. I do want to add before we jump into things here that if you are really interested in the Deepin desktop environment, I have another video where I review the Deepin desktop environment running on Manjaro Linux. And in that video, I may get into more minute details and maybe go down to level 2 on some of the settings in the desktop environment, where in this video, I may not go as deep into some of the settings and or into some of the details of the OS. So you may want to watch both videos if you have a lot of interest in Deepin and the Deepin desktop environment. So with that said, let's jump into some things here. So what you see here is the default layout as you launch Deepin OS for the first time, with the exception of a few added icons to the panel here. Now there are several key features that really lend to the uniqueness of the Deepin OS. There is also an amount of polish that you'll see here that you really don't find in many distros, although that's starting to change. So let's start first with their dock here. And the Deepin dock is unique to a lot of docks or planks that you will see in other distributions or desktop environments, in that it's very interactive. And what I mean by that is you can right click on these icons and interact. Now this is the recycle bin, no big deal. You see that it looks like it has something in it here, and you click empty and we'll confirm that, and now it looks clean and clear. So that's not unusual. You see that in Windows and other operating systems. Here you have a clock on your dock, and you get a pop-up there with the date, but you also can left click that and you'll launch into the Deepin calendar. And this is one of many of the Deepin built apps included in this distribution. Now this calendar, what you see is what you get. You see date, time, and month, and that's about it. If you're looking for something that you can go in and add events, things like that, that is not this calendar. That's going to be another calendar that you will need to install. There are no other settings or anything here that you can get into. Kind of what you see is what you get. The next one here, so the first time I saw this, I thought, oh wow, how smart. You can hover over the volume icon and scroll your mouse wheel to adjust the volume. So that was slick. And then also from the Wi-Fi icon here, this is like something you'd see in your taskbar. You get a pop-up that allows you to toggle on or off the network, change networks, so on and so forth. This icon is also interactive in that it will launch open processes or applications that you have running. So we have Screen Recorder and Chrome running in the background. And by the way, Chrome is installed by default in this distribution, and that's kind of rare. You rarely, if ever, see Chrome as the default web browser. Other ways that this is interactive, let's go down here to the Deepin Screenshot tool, which is another Deepin app. If you right click on that, you could undock that just like you could with any of these other icons. But you also have immediate actions that can take place. You can have a delayed screenshot or a full screenshot just by right clicking and choosing that option. You could also run the app from there. So this has a deeper level of integration than you see in a typical dock or plank from other distributions for sure. Now there's other things here that you can do, and in this new version they have released some much called for features. One of those being the ability to change the location. So we can go in and we can change this to the top, as we saw on the bottom. You could put it over here on the left, similar to the Unity desktop environment, where you have a launcher here on the left, or a whatever you want to call it, a panel or plank there on the left. But you can do more too by left clicking on a blank space of the panel. You can also change from mode. Now there used to be an option for 3 modes there. You had fashion mode, efficient mode, and the name always escapes me, but there was a third mode there, and that's explained actually in the notes of my other Deepin desktop environment video. So fashion mode is default. You go to efficient mode and it gives you more of a traditional taskbar look. So let's put that on the bottom and you'll see what I mean. This looks like something you would see in Windows 10 or other desktop environments. Now you have some other options. You can change the size. We're currently set to small, so let's take that to medium, and the icons scale up fairly nice, and let's go to large. So again, the icons scale up. They do not look blurry. The transition there is very nice. I'm going to take this back to fashion mode. Now you've also got one more option in here, and that is status. So you can keep the bar shown at all times, and what that means is when you open a window, this bar will be there and the window will open just above the bar. You can hide it until you hover your cursor to the bottom, or you can use, if I can get myself straight here, you can use Smart Hide. Now Smart Hide works better in this version than it did in the previous version, and so I'll illustrate that. We'll just launch File Manager, and this is the Deepin Desktop File Manager. All right, so we're going to come down here. Quickly pops up, not a big delay. All right, so nice job there. I wish that there was one other option here, and that is on size. So it's nice that they give you 3 options, but it would also be nice to have a scroll bar there that would let you incrementally scroll that size. And I say that because there's so many different resolutions on screens now, and so while this will probably get you close and do fine, it'd be nice to have that extra setting there. But overall, I think that users who have been calling for the ability to move this panel around, they'll be very happy. All right, so let's move on. So another area, and I'm going to kind of save the best for last, if you will, the shining star, I think, of the Deepin OS. The other feature that's nice, and you see this now in other Linux distributions, in other desktop environments, let me say that, excuse me, and that is corner navigation. So corner navigation gives you the ability to go in and easily set up a few different options here. Now you have the ability to launch the control center, which is what I'm going to show you here in a minute, the shining star, I think, of Deepin. All windows, the launcher, the desktop, or none. All right. So right now, if I hover to the left, we have launcher set up on the left side. I've got that on both corners. If I go here, it's going to open up any active windows with applications running. You see the screen recorder. And then down here, we're going to get into what I think, again, is just a prime example of ingenuity and design and polish all wrapped up into one, with an interface that a first-time user or someone new to computing can easily understand. It kind of reminds me of, I've seen this type of panel on Android tablets and that kind of thing, and I really like it, and I think that they have really set the bar here. Excuse me, I'm fighting those starting of fall allergies, I'm afraid. All right, so you have a list of main categories here, and all easy to understand what it is you're launching into. And then this, again, I thought it was a nice touch here. If you hover over the uh, power button, you see a little glow there. I mean, it's just a nice added touch. All right, so we're going to launch into this. So we'll go to user accounts. Now you'll see a change in the panel. And so you're able to go in and you've got options, but you still see the category icons. You don't have to hit a back arrow to go back to the main menu and then come back in. So again, this is kind of a shining example of a really good UI and interface. And you also see if you hover over these icons, but you'll see what it is you're going to launch into next. But the icons are designed in such a way that they're easy to. I mean, you can tell that's a mouse, that's power. That's going to be time, sound. So it doesn't take a lot for you to understand where you're going when you click. Now you've got some options here, and I'm going to skip over some of the details of a lot of these settings because I have that in the other video as well, and for the sake of time, there's a lot to cover here. So if you go into user accounts, you could change your image, for that user. You could toggle on or off auto login. And I want to mention these toggles and sliders that you're going to see through here. They lend themselves very well to a touch interface. And so if you have a laptop with a touch screen, this may be something to check out because you would easily be able to activate those buttons. Next is display, and for the most part, this works very well. It's easy to set up and really. I'm gonna back up a little bit. If you come down here to custom settings, I had some issues there because I've got an external monitor set up. I went in to go to try to set up custom settings and maybe look for scale, and when I did, it caused the connected monitor main display to switch over to the laptop display, and I had to open up the laptop, and it was kind of really a pain. But really here, if you just wanted to turn one monitor on and turn the other off or duplicate monitors, it's fine. So I'm gonna chalk this up to just pay attention to what you're doing. Um, Here you can go in and change and toggle on or off your default applications. And here you have some interface options. So you have two themes, a dark theme and a light theme. I haven't messed with the dark theme much. The light theme, it's got enough tone and color contrast to where things look really nice. You can go in and change your icons. Now, when I first installed 15.3, you only had two icon set options. You had Deepin, which is just to me a beautiful icon set, very professional and polished. And Flatter is also nice. Then there were two updates, and I will mention the first update. I had an issue. It asked me to restart, and I did so, and I waited for 10 minutes, and it sat at 0 and never did anything. So I finally got kind of brave or crazy, whichever you choose, and held the power button down, reset the system. It launched back in, did the update, and everything was fine. Then I had a second update, and these were small updates, but they took forever, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, let me back up on that. I'll retract it. They didn't take forever. They took longer than they should for the size. Second update introduced two new icon sets. Now, both of these, one of them being oxygen, they look out of place for this desktop environment. You can also change cursor and fonts. And I was disappointed here because there's not a large font selection. What you see there in that list is what you get. And there's no fine tuning of the fonts. You can go in and choose size, but if you wanted to adjust it for your monitor, adjust VGA settings or RGA settings or anything like that, there's nowhere that I've found that you can go in and get really into fine tuning of the fonts. And to me, that's important. You look at fonts every time you're using your computer, so you want the nicest font illustration you can get. So that's a little bit of a letdown. Under this, you'll go into your Wi-Fi settings, Bluetooth settings. You can adjust the volume in and out here, and this is a nice setup again. Under clock, there's an issue here where the default time, or not the default time zone, you actually have to go in and choose a time zone. That time zone, which I'm on the East Coast, so Eastern Standard Time, is wrong. It's an hour off. So I had to go in and lie to the system in order to get the correct time. You also see the calendar here. And then you have power, and this is nice because you can quickly go in and adjust the time settings, and it's this is probably the nicest layout for power management that I've seen. Um, Mouse, keyboard, and function keys. So you can go in and choose different functions and lock those into your keyboard for different settings. Then the boot menu, which I was really surprised to see. You can go in and change the theme, default boot time, boot delay, things like that. Now let's get over here because this is where I want to cover for the updates. So I told you I had two updates. Now those updates showed up automatically. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to manually go in and check those updates. But if you wanted to, you'd do that at this setting, and you could simply choose update here. So I'm going to hit that now. And so we're up to date, which is good. But one thing I want to point out, if you install this, you want to make sure you click the gear toggle switch there and toggle open to where you can see auto check update, and then under that will be mirrors. You want to go in and switch the mirror from the default to a US mirror, and you want to do that because the update can be extremely slow if you don't. Alright, so again, to me, take note developers, this is really nicely done and could be duplicated or improved on, and just to me is one of the real standout features, and I'll leave it at that. I've harped on that enough, but it's great to see that type of development. All right, so let's jump into another, I think, shining example of the Deepin OS, and that is their Deepin Store. It's a shining example, but it's also one of the reasons that I feel kind of let down every time I use this OS. I get excited and I like the wow factor of it and I like the polish of it, and then I get into some of the real life things such as installing software. Now don't get me wrong, this is beautiful. It's well laid out. It's got a good selection of software in this store, and they even, and you'll see there, you see there's a little delay. That's nothing compared to what I have seen. Let's go over here to internet. Now that one was fast, and that's because I've launched into internet before, and I think this information is cached. And so I'm gonna cut it some slack, because what I have found is that if you've launched into it once, it caches some of the images and it doesn't take as long to load. But there's other issues here that we'll get into. But before we do, I want to talk about some good things, which is they include web apps. So mixed in with the apps that would be resident on your computer, you're going to find, and it'll say Web Outlook, Web Google Drive. What this does, and I pre-installed this so that we can launch this, is this puts a web application into a Windows wrapper similar to what you see in Peppermint OS with ICE. It's an SSB. So if you launch that, now you see, had I logged in, we would have launched, well, right into Outlook Mail, and it would be in a window format that I can adjust, minimize, maximize, drag around the screen, and you also get an icon that looks just like an application. So it kind of merges cloud computing right in with this desktop environment, similar to what you see in Peppermint OS. And let's face it, more and more things are done in the cloud these days. You can edit videos, edit photos, do your email, your calendar, your contacts. Google Apps has, Google Apps and Microsoft have online versions of Office, and it goes on and on and on. So, the way we did computing 15 years ago is drastically different from the way we do computing today. So it's nice to see this. Now, I will add that I wish that they would categorize these web apps because they don't always stand out. And if I was not familiar with this whole setup, I may not know exactly, that I have launched a web app. Even though it says web, I may just see Outlook and get excited and click on that and think I'm installing Outlook. Chances of that are slim, granted, but it would be nice if they had one more category that just listed web apps. All right, let's launch into something here, and I'm going to go into Firefox. Now that loaded quickly, and the reason that did was because I had launched into Firefox earlier. But I'm going to pop out now to something that I haven't loaded before, and we'll see. Watch it make a liar out of me. Let's go to Corebird. All right, so you see how slow these photos are at launch loading in. So the front end of this thing is slow the first time you go in and you launch something new. You can see how these images are slowly coming in. Now you see the description up here, you see the rating, and all of this is beautiful. I think, this is one of the nicest layouts for an application app or store in Linux. But it's dreadfully slow and can be painfully slow at times. Now let's jump over here to something maybe that I have not. Let's go to reading. Okay, that launched fast. Like I said, this will make a liar out of me. All right, we're going to go to Office. Okay, so that took a while. And then we're going to find us an Office app. Now here's another web app. It's Web Microsoft Office. And so again, that's going to give you an interface that's going to be like an application, but it's going to be online. Let's go to Evernote. Now this says Android Evernote. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to install this. You can see the photos are still loading. And here's where things start to fall down for me. One of the areas where things start to fall down for me. Now I clicked here and it says installing. If you come over here and just kind of in space on the taskbar here, you'll see here that this will take forever to download. And I have found that with many of the apps. Now we're going to let this run. And if anyone out there who has a lot of experience with the Deepin OS has a fix for this, man, oh man, would I love it if you would share that in our video channel, so that everyone could apply the fix. Now I'm going to do a little research myself here, because this is just one of those things you're going to interact with no matter what when you install this OS. So if there's a fix for this, and you could apply a fix without jumping through hoops and writing 15 pages of code, everyone needs to know about that, because this really mars an otherwise really nice OS. And there's a few other things that mar the OS, and that's why I'm coming to the conclusion that this is going to be a distribution I'm always going to keep my eye on, but it's not a distribution for me to run every day. And that's for me, and I'm sure it works great for other people. Now you see, this is just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. We're going to let this run. There's a great selection of apps here, and they've done a great job illustrating what the app is, what it's meant to do. It's bright, it's colorful. It reminds me of Android. But again, some things are just extremely slow loading. It's sporadic too. It's kind of like you never know if it's going to go fast or slow. I mean, we're at 1%. All right, so I'm going to minimize this. And actually, I'm going to close this out. There's no reason. You get the point. I want to talk about another area where things kind of fall down, and it's in one of the Deepin apps, and that is the Deepin File Manager. And for me, I'm kind of a stickler about a nice file manager. It's something I use all the time and interact with all the time. This is perhaps the most basic file manager I have ever seen in a Linux OS. You have two options for viewing. You've got icon view and list view. Okay. There are no other deeper settings that I could find. There's no second level of settings that I could find to go in and do things like one-click open. So here you have to double-click. All right. Now you've got a right-click menu that's pretty good. But here's one of my pet peeves. You have throw and trash, but no option to delete. If I know I want to delete that file, I simply want to delete that file. I don't want to have to put it in trash and then take another step to empty the trash. So, if I want to throw it out, I want to throw it out and be done with it. So, it would be nice to have that. It would be nice to have a split screen, so there are no settings for that. Maybe a third view option here. It's a nice clean interface. It's fast, very fast, but it just doesn't give the level of interaction that I prefer, in my desktop environment. Now, I want to flip that, and I want to say that if you were presenting the Deepin OS as a first-time OS to a young person, maybe first time using Linux or first computer, then there's not a lot there for them to go in and change settings on to mess up. So from that aspect, it's a good thing. So I guess it depends on your perspective, but again, you could install another file manager, but that would pull away from what I think is polish. I mean, if you look at this looks clean and polished. So, but it's still for me, it's a knock against why I would not use this, but I do want to keep my eye on it. All right, let's jump into some of the other Deepin apps, because you do need to be aware that they have spent the time to develop these apps. So you have Deepin Music, and you're able to go in and change the theme. You've got a few themes there. You've got settings for equalizer, converter, MIDI mode, lyrics, things like that. So I think this is going to be overall, and I haven't used it, but it looks like it could be a nice, fairly fast, simple, straightforward music player. And it's nice to have that built in. It's going to, chances are it's going to work well with the system. You have Deepin Movie. Now I'm impressed with this. It's a very clean interface when it launches. This is the size that the screen launches into, and I like that because there are times when I want to slide this over and I'm doing something over here while something's playing, and it doesn't launch into any weird formats or anything like that. Clean interface, and really, really impressed with what they've done there. Now, a few of the other apps are nothing to really write home about. You've got Deepin Terminal, nothing special there. Like I said earlier, the calendar is certainly nothing to write home about, in my opinion. It lets you see what you need to see. There's a few other things I haven't looked at. You've got Deepin Cloud Print, Cloud Scan, and I think I'm going to quit saying Deepin for some of this. All right, let's look at their image viewer. Now, again, it's a plain Jane image viewer. There's no editing built in, but if you just want to cut and dry view the images, it works fine. It launches fast, and it looks like, the rest of the OS, it's polished. So you could rotate the image and delete or favorite the image, but that's about it. And what am I missing here? I know there's something else that we covered the store. All right, here's my awkward moment of pause while I search for other Deepin applications, because I feel like, Deepin Bootmaker. Now I've used that. I've used that in the past. It works well, and it's as good as any other bootmaker for taking an ISO, putting it on a USB, that kind of thing. And I do want to talk about a few of the apps that are pre-installed. One is the WPS Office Suite. I was thrilled to see that. I really like the Linux WPS Office Suite. That suite is developed in China as well, so it makes sense that a Chinese distribution is going to use that for their default Office Suite. And I'm fine with seeing Google Chrome pre-installed. I thought that was a good choice. I was surprised to see Skype pre-installed. And Steam as well. So, if you're into gaming, that's sitting there ready to go and set up. And it seems like I read an article sometime back that it works very well in Steam or in Deepin OS. Let's move on down here. And Crossover, that was the other big one. I was impressed to see that they had Crossover Linux pre-installed, because if you are coming from Windows, to have this already installed and set up, which it can at times be a pain to get set up properly. It's gotten a lot better, but if you have a certain Windows app that you just can't do without, this will allow you to go in and set up those Windows apps. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but it works well for the most part. Some versions of the Windows app, depending on age of the Windows app, work better than others, but this certainly goes a long way to helping you get that Windows application up and running in your Linux environment. So that was great to see pre-installed. So, there's a lot here, and there's more things that we could drill down into. There's enough that for me, this is one I'm going to pass on, and I would not use as my daily driver, and I've mentioned some of those reasons why. You cannot drill down into the settings deep enough to my liking. The file manager is certainly lacking, and I don't think it represents the rest of the OS. There needs to be better control and integration there. The slowness of the Deepin store, that is one that is hard to overcome when you maybe quickly need to install something, and you could literally wait 20-25 minutes for a simple app to install. So again, if there are fixes out there, and I'm going to do some searching, so please message, in the video, under the video, if you've got any hints or ideas or have come across anything that will improve that. And but again, this is one that I'm certainly going to keep an eye on. If you are looking for something brand new, something that you've never experienced before, and maybe you've been stuck on Fedora Gnome Edition for the past 5 years, and you're not having to do heavy computer work anymore, and now today you're living in the web, and you don't have to do a lot that requires a lot of heavy lifting and tweaking. Certainly give this a look, because the freshness of design and the polish and everything will make this a fun experience. It's a fun OS to use and interact with. So that's about it for me. Again, I've got another video there running of Deepin OS running on Manjaro. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, and we appreciate that. And we will check you later.